Hey, you guys, welcome to When You'll See the Sales. This is season 5, episode 2, but we are on episode 65 now. And this is the very first time that I am filming visually alone. It's something that I've been wanting to do, but again, it's kind of strange not having anyone else to talk with me. And if you guys remember the first 14 months that I did this, it was audio only, and I recorded every single Sunday. And it was this beautiful diary that I had that I absolutely loved doing. And it was while I was in Dallas, and it was such a huge part of my weekly schedule. And I really wanted to try to do this visually on my own. So here we go. And this week, I wanted to talk about what a warrior's mindset is. I have been asked the last couple weeks to be on some sports podcasts. And for those of you that do know me really well, I grew up playing sports. Sports have meant so much to me in my life. And so I just wanted to give background about that prior to getting onto those podcasts so you guys know where I come from when it comes to that. You guys know I was born in Long Beach, California, grew up in Northern California, and ever since I was little, I've had these coaches in my life. I've had these mentors that have meant the world to me. And starting with my father and my grandfather, who were my number one coaches in life. When I was young, my dad got me a John Wooden book to read about basically the duality between a sports player and a student of life, really. And my dad grew up playing sports. My brother did. I did. My sister did. It's just been a family part of our values, but again, kind of a tradition. And everything within my life really does come back to team building, team playing, and just living your greatest dreams and desires, like I talk to you guys about all the time. And again, it really does start with your mindset, your mentality, your family values. Everything that I am now comes from the foundation of my family. My dad has been, the head of our household. My mother and him have shaped us into these wonderful human beings. I'm the oldest of 3, and I've always loved the tie into sports and the coaches in my life. So let me start with my dad. My dad grew up in Los Angeles. He's the son of a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor for 33 years. And everything he learned and taught me is from my grandfather. And my grandfather is from upstate New York. So again, being here in New York, it's been really beautiful to see that side of the family and be close to that side of the family. I'm actually visiting my grandfather's brother this month, spend time with them. And again, we're just very, very close as a family. So background on that. And my grandfather passed away in the 90s, but again, was such a rock for our family and just this incredible power and strength that you felt, but with the softest, kindest spirit, and is the epitome of what I see and what I love about pastors, because he really lived according to God and the Spirit. And he wasn't, again, there's so much within our culture in this day and age and churches and the business behind that. But my grandfather really was the purest soul and really did everything from love and was so selfless and giving. And again, the greatest coach in my father's life. And that's trickled down to us within our family. So my dad put us in sports. I grew up loving and playing basketball and volleyball since I was little. I loved watching football with my dad, the greatest quarterback of all time who's now retired, Tom Brady. I wore 2 numbers growing up my whole life. It was 12 for Brady and then 24 for a player who we might not all think about when we think of 24, but I do. It's the first person that I think of. And that player is Bobby Jackson. I grew up in Sacramento, California, and I grew up to my dream team. So if you think back to that era, I'm kind of dating myself, but 03, 04, even prior to that a little bit. Bobby Jackson, Mike Bibby, Peja Stojakovic, Hito, Weber. That whole crew was everything to me growing up. And I loved shooting. I was a shooting guard. I'm left-handed. I absolutely loved being on the court. I had one of my favorite coaches, Jerry, when I was in middle school, who just taught me the fundamentals of sports, but really believed in me. And I'm somebody that always, again, within sports, like did my part as a teammate. I wouldn't say that personally I stood out, even though I loved the game so much. But as a team, I always loved being a part of something much bigger than myself. And that's what it's always been for me. And it started with that. It started with sports. So again, shout out to Jerry, shout out to my dad for putting us in sports and again, showing us the love that he had for sports. He grew up playing basketball, baseball. He's really, really tall. And again, I always admired my dad within his athleticism, and I always wanted to be just like him. And growing up, for all of those watching right now, I've always kind of felt misunderstood. So this episode is definitely for you if you felt misunderstood. As a woman, I've always been kind of a tomboy. I've always loved the duality of sports, but then I embrace my femininity. And again, the reason I started this podcast is for us as women to empower one another, to bring that connection together through the power of womanhood to fulfill all of our deepest dreams and desires. And so for me, again, there's this duality where I'm so feminine, but also I look up to my dad, and my very first best friend was my brother, who to me is like the titan of everything I want to be when it comes to physicality, sports. Like he pushed himself, almost went pro rugby. And again, like watching even that sport growing up and falling in love with that sport because of how ingrained it was in his life. It really, again, comes back to our family values, the team work when it comes to all of that stuff. And my brother's one of the hardest working people I know. And so again, like when you see the heart, the grit, the grind that it takes to build something and to create something and to go for something much bigger than yourself, it's always been, again, the epitome of who I am and who our family is and everything that we've done together at the foundation of it all is that, and love, just unconditional love that I try to share with you guys every sort of way that I can. And so I really wanted to, again, bring this to a warrior's mindset for my love of sports. So now the other player that everyone thinks about when, I guess being from California, number 24, is Kobe. And I always talk about the Mamba mentality. And again, when I did my 75 days, it's really carried with me. You know, I'm some months out, like 7 or more months out now from doing that. And everything within my mental toughness, physicality, you can see it. You guys have seen the journey with me even since I started this in 2021. The journey has been so great. And 2024 really has, brought a newfound love of so many different passions, again, yielding from all of this that I'm talking about, the warrior's mentality. And so what that means to me, again, does stem from family values, my core values, the love of sports, everything within, at times feeling like, I can't even tell you guys how many times I've been called weird in some sort of way, mostly from my mother, who, again, this episode is actually, I'm dedicating it to family, but I want to dedicate it to her, and I'm going to tie it back into her at the end. But you guys know that this podcast was named Sueños y Deseos in Spanish to embrace her culture, our culture as a Nicaraguan family. And so there's been different things that have happened in the last couple weeks where, again, I really had to think about my mental toughness, embracing the fact that I am misunderstood in different ways. I always feel like I have been because I have this, it's more than a duality. I have all these different loves and passions and dreams, but also I'm just very non-linear within how I do things. And as you guys have seen, I launched my marketing company in December. I've been very quiet about it because I'm learning something that's so new to me. I've really pushed myself and challenged myself in that regard. And I've had so many people within my circle that I really appreciate. They know who they are, that have really instilled in me and keep pushing me to keep at it, even though I'm horrible at least, again, when you're learning something brand new, it's always, you're never going to be great at something, right? But until you start it and start learning and start practicing all those things, you really don't know, again, if you love it or how good you're going to be at it, or if it's something you do want to do. And I knew that I wanted to get into corporate marketing, and it's been a challenge, but it's been a challenge that I've really loved because I've learned all these different fields. I knew nothing about biomimetic health. I knew nothing about farming to the extent that I do, and I'm doing corporate marketing in that area now. I recently took on a project that didn't last that long, but I tried it out, and it was in the political sector, and it was in a very different space for me. I was working on Wall Street, and I loved the challenge. Again, anything that's new to me, something that I've never done before. I'm always such a curious person by nature, as you guys know. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely doing this. How often do you get an opportunity like this? It's unique. So again, there's been different things in the last couple months since we've last talked, and you've seen me as an individual. You guys have seen things online, but it all ties together. And it started again with launching my marketing company and then starting these sub companies within our videography and photography services. So I wanted to talk a little bit about FemFrame LA because I haven't. And FemFrame, I was in LA in March, and I've loved shooting on Polaroid. And again, tying into the marketing company and tying into my love of this podcast, I was like, I want to continue empowering women in different spaces tied into the companies and again, my purposes and my passions in life. So that's how FemFrame came about. I've loved shooting women. I love boudoir. I think it's beautiful to embrace ourselves in every light at every age. And so that's where FemFrame came. It's shooting women on Polaroid, one frame at a time. And after launching that and having, again, just beautiful experiences with my friends, and it's trickled into other people that I'm meeting. And I'm like, yeah, I'd absolutely love to shoot you. It's just been this beautiful trickle of shooting different women on Polaroid. And I'm just very excited to keep going and seeing where this year and this summer specifically takes me next with that company. The next company that's launching in June within our videography services is FET Films New York City. And again, I've kind of taken this French spin on things just because I've loved the names. And fête means party in French. So I'm bringing back the 90s, you guys. And again, I get so excited that these dreams come about because of different visuals and other creators and other photographers and videographers that I'm inspired by. And then I share these ideas with you guys. And you guys are always just so like, oh my goodness, like I can't wait to be a part of this. I can't wait to do this. So in addition to my passions and my purposes that I've found, I really love building community. And that's what this has all been about. This is what this podcast has been about. And again, it's been the dreams that God has planted in my heart that I bring into fruition. And it's just kind of grown from there. Now, as I say all of this, right, I've kind of talked a little bit about my family and our structure and like those things within a foundation that are at my core in my everyday. And I've talked a little bit about how I've felt misunderstood at times. But when it comes to a warrior's mindset, what I think about is the fact that we don't go through every day waking up as happy as I appear to be always. We have our days that are off. And as I'm out in the community and at these wonderful events, I was actually at a wonderful event last night. I met a wonderful photographer named Ramon. We had an incredible conversation. And within the conversation, he's also from California. So we talked about the move of, moving from state to state, maybe being away from your family, really honing in on the things that you love, your works, your passions. We talked about dating. We talked about life. We talked about what it's like. He's in his 40s. I'm in my mid 30s now. We talked about life, and it was just a beautiful conversation. And within the midst of that, we touched on basically depression and going through things where maybe on days we go through moments where it's not easy to get into the workflow or get into just waking up sometimes and feeling like, you know what, I have everything it takes to make this day great today. And so I wanted to share with you guys some things that have really helped me, because those that know me know that I am all about my family, but I have been separated from my family by location physically now since I've lived in New York. Most of my family's in California. And as you guys know, my sister's in Italy. And it will never, ever be normal to me to live a plane ride away from family. Family's literally everything. But I know that God has called me to be here. And so I'm focused on my passions and my dreams here for now. And so I wanted to tell you guys that whatever you're going through, make sure that you're checking in with yourself and creating a routine that works for you so that you have a very good balance in your life. For me at 34, you couldn't have told my 24-year-old self that routine is what you need, because I was like, no, I was always so against routine. Like, living a life where I was like, you know what, I was just always fighting it because I've been a night owl naturally. I still am a night owl. Everyone knows that. And I have my little routines that are in my downtime of watching movies pretty frequently. Those are things that make me happy. But I'm talking about an actual routine of, you know what, I need to wake up at this time. I need to go to bed by this time, despite what you might have within your day and around that, your downtime. So for me, what's worked, and again, what I advise my friends and like talk to them about, is that you need a balance. So finding that, whatever that might be, and giving yourself grace as you come up with maybe a new routine or kind of switch things around where you feel really good at night and you're like, you know what, I can sleep soundly. We're going to have our off days. But really, what's really helped me is sticking to that routine and really finding a discipline in that. And that's what comes back to me for that Mamba mentality of, look, like, I got to go hard. We get this one life. Everyone knows that I always say YOLO, you only live once. And I really stand by that. So giving it your all, doing your best on your off days is so tough. I'm the first one to say it's not easy. There's days where I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like doing this today, but I got to do it. And you know why? Because your future self depends on it. And also you'll thank yourself. And again, oftentimes something feels like a much bigger weight than it actually is. And so finding habits, creating habits that are healthy for you, making sure that you're eating well, that you have a nice physical routine, that you're getting outside. Another thing that I just started, and I've actually been doing my whiteboard quarterly routine. And by that, I mean, I have two whiteboards in my room. I have one for words of affirmation, and then the other one is my quarterly plan so that I visually can see what my short-term goals are to my long-term goals. I also have different diaries that I have, whether it's a prayer journal or a personal diary, and then different things within that regard. And I started therapy. And I just want to say, it's been a long time coming. You guys have seen, again, the growth and the different chapters of my life. And therapy has been so healing for me. And one of the biggest things, there's a lot of different goals that I have within my personal development, my work goals for the short term and the long term. But something that's really, really worked for me is living in the present. I feel like for so long, I was talking about the past so that I could relate to people. And as I've grown really within this last year, I've realized that when it comes to the now, that's all we have. We've learned from things in our past and we're building for our future. And so I'm really living in the now. And if you're meeting me in this chapter right now, I've always been about kindness. I've always been about unconditional love. And so I just wanted you guys to know a little background about why I am the way that I am and where I'm going. And again, you guys have heard so many different sides of me at this point. You guys have seen the growth, and this really has been my greatest personal diary. You guys have been here with me since 2021, and that was such a lifetime ago for me, it feels. I'll always have my core values and morals, but I've really had so much growth and so much beauty in New York. And anytime I'm connecting with any of you, and even this last group podcast that I did, if I even hear one person say, thank you for saying that, or wow, you know what, that put an idea in my mind, or you know what, thanks for calling, it meant the world. that is everything to me. And that's why I do this. I really do this because I know the power of community and I know what kindness and the ripples of kindness can do. So I just want to leave you guys this episode saying that a warrior's mindset is many things to me, but find out what that means for you and just know that wherever you're at in your day, that it gets better. That again, make sure that you're surrounded by love and peace and make sure that the people that in your life want what's best for you and support you, regardless of your dreams or how misunderstood you might feel or how different you might be from someone in your circle. I think there's such beauty when it comes to our differences, and it all starts with kindness and again, just having the right mindset. So take care, you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this. This will probably be one of the only episodes this season that you see me alone because, it's fun. It's different. Again, I wanted to challenge myself a little bit, see how I can, go about like off script and just talking to you guys like I've always done. But yeah, hope you guys have a great week. And I have a couple of things that you'll see in the short clips that I'm doing. I'm doing this really fun K18 review thanks to Claudia. So stay tuned.